Athens, Ohio, a small Appalachian town, surrounded by dense woods and steep hills. But beneath its quiet surface, Athens holds a reputation few other college towns can match. For decades, paranormal researchers have whispered about Athens' haunted pentagram, 5 cemeteries positioned around the city, forming a near-perfect star when connected on a map. At the very heart of that star stands Ohio University. It's a place long rumored to sit on cursed ground, built over native burial sites, asylum ruins, and layers of tragedy. And within its campus, one building has gained a reputation darker than any other: Wilson Hall, and specifically, one dorm room inside it, room 428. Wilson Hall first opened its doors in the mid-1960s, built to house the university's rapidly growing student population. From the outside, it looked like any other campus residence: red brick walls, long corridors, echoing stairwells. But according to reports, preserved in local archives and student newspapers, room 428 became a hotspot for disturbing activity almost immediately after the hall's opening. One of the earliest tragedies involved a young man who died in the room under unusual circumstances. Local papers never went into detail, but rumors spread quickly among students. Some whispered suicide, others claimed it was violent in nature. What mattered most was what came after. Residents began reporting strange, unsettling activity inside room 428, doors opening and slamming without cause, heavy footsteps pacing the floor when no one was inside, objects moving on their own, and perhaps most frightening, shadows that seemed to shift across the walls even when the lights were off. One former student, interviewed in the Post-Ohio University's campus paper, described waking in the night to the sight of a figure standing at the end of their bed. When the light was switched on, nothing was there. Others claimed the room itself seemed to resist them. Crosses placed on the wall would not stay upright. Items nailed down somehow worked loose and crashed to the floor. And every time a new student moved in, the activity began again. Some paranormal researchers believe Wilson Hall's disturbances are tied to the land beneath it. Just a short walk away lies the abandoned Athens Lunatic Asylum, an institution infamous for overcrowding, experimental treatments, and countless patient deaths throughout the late 19th and early 20th century. The asylum's cemeteries hold nearly 2,000 unmarked graves. Paranormal investigators, including those cited in the Athens County Historical Society's records, have long suggested that Ohio University's grounds absorbed the asylum's tragedies, and that Wilson Hall's room 428 became a focal point for that energy. By the 1970s, reports of activity inside room 428 had become so persistent that the university administration could no longer ignore them. Students requested transfers, parents complained, and multiple incidents were reportedly logged by campus security. One story, circulated among staff, claimed that officers responding to noise complaints would enter the room only to find it empty, yet furniture had been overturned, drawers pulled out, and writing scratched faintly into the walls. According to some accounts, that writing was not in English. Finally, sometime in the late 1970s, Ohio University took an unprecedented step. They officially sealed room 428. To this day, the university has never provided a public explanation, but students and alumni confirm the door has remained closed for decades. No one is assigned to live there. It is, quite literally, a dorm room too haunted to live in. Yet the story does not end there. Even with room 428 sealed, Wilson Hall has continued to generate reports of strange activity. Students in neighboring rooms still describe footsteps, knocks, and distant voices echoing through the walls. Some say they've seen lights flicker from behind the sealed door. Others swear they've heard scratching sounds from within. Whether the source is restless spirits, the asylum's dark history, or something far older tied to Athens' cursed pentagram, no one can say for sure. But one thing is certain: Wilson Hall stands as the only dormitory room in Ohio University history that was permanently closed. And if you ever walk the halls of Wilson late at night, don't stop near the 4th floor, because behind one locked door, something may still be waiting for you. They say, if you walk alone through Christie Mansion at night, you'll never hear your own footsteps, only hers. The University of Toronto is one of the oldest and most respected institutions in Canada. Its sprawling campus is filled with history, tradition, and countless stories whispered among students. But one building in particular carries a reputation darker than most: Christie Mansion. an elegant red brick house tucked just off Wellesley Street, with ivy climbing its face and tall windows staring out like watchful eyes. By day, it looks like just another historic building, but at night, silence hangs heavy inside. Too heavy. For decades, students have whispered about the ghost that walks its halls. A story that begins not with legend but with tragedy. The most widely told version dates back to the early 20th century. Some say during the years of the First World War, a young woman, isolated, heartbroken, and abandoned, took her own life inside the mansion. Others insist it was later, sometime during the Second World War. The details differ, but the ending is always the same. A woman, lost to despair, dying inside Christie Mansion. Her death was quiet, but her presence, they say, was anything but. At first, the story spread like any other campus ghost tale, a myth told to scare freshmen. A whisper passed along during late-night study sessions, but over time, too many people experienced the same things. Students report hearing soft sobbing echo through the stairwells, at first faint, almost like wind, but the longer you listen, the closer it comes, louder, sharper, until it sounds like someone crying directly behind you. When you turn around, the hallway is empty. Others describe footsteps following them up the stairs, always one step behind. You climb, and it climbs. You stop, and it stops. The air grows cold, heavy, pressing down on you, until you can't deny it anymore. You're not alone. One of the most chilling encounters came from a history student in the 1970s. She stayed late one night, finishing a paper in Christie Mansion's quiet study room. By midnight, the building was nearly deserted. Only the scratching of her pen broke the silence. Then she heard it, a low, muffled sob drifting through the hallway. At first, she assumed it was another student, but the crying didn't move, didn't fade. It stayed constant, like it wasn't coming from a person, but from the walls themselves. Heart pounding, she packed her things and headed for the exit. But as she descended the staircase, she froze. Behind her footsteps, slow, deliberate, climbing the stairs, she turned. No one was there. One step, then another. She froze, yet the sound didn't stop. It was climbing toward her. She bolted, racing through the doors into the night. Later, she swore. Even outside, on the street, she could still hear the footsteps, just beyond the door. There's another detail that many who encounter the ghost report. Whenever the sobbing begins, the air changes. It fills with the faint smell of perfume. Not fresh, not pleasant, sickly sweet, like roses that have long since died. A fragrance from another century, a scent that does not belong. Some students, of course, decided to test the legend. Late one night, a group of friends stayed behind in the mansion after hours. They laughed, joked, daring each other to call out for the ghost. But the laughter ended abruptly when the sobbing began. Soft at first, then swelling until it filled the corridor. One of them whispered, "She's here." The lights overhead flickered violently, and then, the sound of running feet charged toward them down the hall. They fled in terror, leaving their books and papers scattered behind. When they returned the next morning, their belongings were still there, but every single notebook was soaked through. Pages damp, words smeared, as if someone or something had been crying over them all night. Even today, Room 8 inside Christie Mansion is considered the most haunted. Students whisper about its locked door rattling violently on its own. Some say it sounds like something inside is trying to get out. A few brave or reckless students have tried staying overnight. None lasted long. One described waking to the sound of a woman's voice whispering his name. When he opened his eyes, the room was empty, except for the shadow. A woman's shadow stretched across the wall. Even though no one was there to cast it, the shadow shifted, but he didn't. The silence of staff. Officially, the University of Toronto doesn't acknowledge the haunting. Christie Mansion, they say, is just another historic building, but staff rarely speak about it. And when they do, it's with quick glances, hushed tones, and unfinished sentences. It's as if the silence itself is a form of protection. Generations of students have carried this legend forward. Each year, more stories are added. A whisper in the dark, a sob on the stairs, footsteps that don't belong to anyone living. Some laugh it off, others avoid the building altogether. But those who've experienced it never laugh again. They speak quietly, almost reluctantly, about the night they realized something inside Christie Mansion is still there, still grieving, still waiting. So if you ever find yourself walking those halls after dark, remember this. Don't stop when you hear footsteps. Don't turn when you hear crying. Just keep walking. Because if the stories are true, she's already behind you. Some rooms are so haunted, they are sealed shut permanently. At the University of Sydney's St. John's College, one dormitory room has carried a reputation so dark that students whisper about it even today. A place linked to death, fear, and inexplicable events. The room remains empty because no one dares to live there. The University of Sydney, founded in 1850, is Australia's oldest university. Within its sandstone walls stands St. John's College. Established in 1858 as a Catholic residential college, its Gothic architecture and long corridors may inspire awe during the day, but at night, many describe it as unsettling. The college has a long, complicated history. Over the decades, it has been plagued by stories of harsh initiations, reckless hazing rituals, and tragedies that the institution preferred to keep behind closed doors. Students have whispered that one of these rituals may have gone too far, leaving behind not only scandal, but something far worse. According to campus law, sometime in the early 20th century, a young man died inside one of the college's dormitory rooms. Accounts vary. Some say it was a hazing ritual gone wrong. Others claim the boy was brutally tormented by his peers. What is certain is that a student lost his life within those walls, and almost immediately, strange occurrences began. The Sydney Morning Herald at the time briefly noted student unrest and strange disturbances within the college. Officially, the death was never linked to foul play, but whispers among the students told a different story. Those who stayed in the room afterward reported disembodied whispers, the sound of someone gasping for air in the darkness, and an oppressive weight pressing down on their chest as they tried to sleep. A few claimed they woke up unable to breathe, convinced that invisible hands were tightening around their throat. The room itself became the centerpiece of fear, but it was not the only place touched by strangeness inside St. John's. Students have reported fleeting apparitions in the college corridors, pale figures vanishing as soon as they are approached. Others describe sudden drops in temperature, as though walking through an invisible pocket of cold air. One recurring story tells of an unseen hand that grips a student's shoulder late at night, only for them to turn and find no one there. The sensation is so vivid that some believe it is the restless spirit of the hazing victim, trying to make his presence known. In the 1980s, one student swore he woke in the middle of the night to find his bedsheets pulled tight across his chest. He thought it was a prank, until he realized no one else was in the room. The sheets were still pinned down, as if an unseen weight was pressing into him. He never returned to that dorm. On several occasions, priests were quietly invited to bless parts of the college. While never officially acknowledged, some alumni claimed these blessings were meant to calm whatever haunted its halls. But if prayers were spoken, they did little to quiet the whispers. In recent decades, students say the room was quietly sealed. Officially, it was marked as unavailable for housing. Unofficially, it was because no one could endure staying there. Alumni have recalled the room in hushed tones, saying it was always locked, its curtains drawn tight. Some insist they heard noises coming from behind the door at night, faint scratching, muffled gasps, and the distinct creak of footsteps pacing across the floorboards. Local paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated St. John's report a heavy presence inside its walls. One investigator described the atmosphere as suffocating, as if the building itself did not want them there. Others reported battery drains, malfunctioning cameras, and sudden waves of nausea when standing near the locked door. To this day, the exact details of the student's death remain buried beneath layers of rumor and silence. The college has never commented publicly on the haunting, and the room stays empty, avoided by students and staff alike. Yet, late at night, those who walk the halls of St. John's claim the silence is broken by faint sounds, the dragging of footsteps, the stifled gasp of someone struggling for breath, echoing from behind a locked door. Perhaps it is only legend, shaped by fear and repetition over generations. Or perhaps the spirit of that student has never left, condemned to relive his final moments within those four walls. What is certain is this: at St. John's College, one dormitory remains empty, not because it is forgotten, but because it is remembered.